All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we are going through Proverbs chapter 2, verses 13 through 15. And it's primarily going to be talking about, or the thing I took from it at least, is that wisdom delivers you from people who rejoice in evil and have crooked ways. So this is kind of an extension of our last podcast, and it just dives in a little deeper. So we're just going to read the verses. Delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech. So that was verse 12, and then we jump into verse 13, which says, who forsake the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil. Men whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. And so I think what's really important here, it's been 3 verses expanding on people who walk in the ways of evil. So not expanding on the people, but expanding on the way of evil. So it says, delivering you from the way of evil. And then it expands on that by saying, from men of perverted speech, men who forsake the paths of uprightness, walk in the ways of darkness, rejoice in doing evil, delight in the perverseness of evil, paths are crooked, devious in their ways. It's expanding on that so much because I think at our core, we're relational people, and the ways we experience evil, I would say, happen in 2 ways, really. We experience it within ourselves, so our relationship with ourselves, and then we experience it with other people. And I can't really think of any other ways to experience evil. You're either experiencing it within yourself or you're experiencing it with other people. And Proverbs here really dives into experiencing it with other people when talking about men, or at least that's what I thought at first glance. But we're going to jump into that a little bit more later in the show. Right now, I'm going to go, where has this shown up in my life? So again, wisdom delivers you from people who rejoice in evil and have crooked ways. This has shown up in my life kind of all throughout school. I touched on this in the last podcast as well. I knew how to avoid drugs, slackers, partying, alcohol, all those pitfalls where people were just basically forsaking the path of uprightness. And now not all those things are upright versus down wrong, I guess. That's definitely not the word, but it wasn't always right versus wrong. For me, it was productivity versus not productive. And so drugs didn't really make you more productive. People who slacked, parties, alcohol, all that stuff didn't make you more productive. And I just associated productivity with being upright, if you will. And honestly, Christian culture kind of does that too. At least that's what I got from it when I was 14 and growing up. So it communicates that message in some shape, form, or fashion. But really, I just got good at avoiding evil things because it didn't produce good things. Like, this wasn't a scenario where figs were coming from a grapevine or grapes coming from a fig tree. Like, that wasn't what it was. It was like, I see that is a grapevine and I know it's going to produce grapes. I don't want grapes right now, especially those grapes because they're sour grapes. And so I would avoid those situations. I got really good at that all throughout school. And I think I got good at it because of the culture around me. You know, I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor. The Bible was pretty clear on stuff. Christian culture is extremely clear on stuff. And so with that, I kind of avoided what culture told me to avoid. Where do I want this to show up in my life? First and foremost, I also want to go to the Bible to see what's evil. Because I think we avoid the naturally evil things like premarital sex. That is like a common no-no in Christianity. I'm not saying you're evil if you have premarital sex. I've done it myself. It is not like, it is not a worse sin than other sins. But it is sinful. It is not of God. And so premarital sex, drugs, like gorging on alcohol, gorging on food. What is that called? Gluttony. Like being gluttonous, being selfish, being hateful. Like we kind of avoid all those things in culture. But the things we don't avoid is like low self-confidence, being negative, not becoming the best version of yourself, not taking action based on faith. Like all of these inactions are just as sinful, if not worse, because they're secretive. Like sin that's put out in the light cannot exist, but when you have sin that's stuck inside because culture kind of keeps it on the inside and nobody calls each other out on it, I feel like those have more severe effects for people's lives. And so I want to get really good at reading the Bible, getting wisdom from the Bible, and understanding what all is sin. Because, like, yes, premarital sex. Yes, being hateful. Yes, being gluttonous. Yes, being selfish. But low confidence, living in fear. Like, we don't talk about that. A lot of people live in fear. A lot of us work our jobs based on fear. A lot of us do a lot of things based on fear, and that is sinful because perfect love casts out fear. So where fear exists, perfect love cannot, which means in that area of your life, you are not connected to God because God is perfect love. So just something to think about for me. That's where I want it to show up in my life. I also want to avoid the evil parts of myself. So again, wisdom here is delivering you from the way of evil. That's in verse 12. I know we're talking about verses 13 through 15 here, but there are ways of evil within myself. There are parts of myself that forsake the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness. There are parts of me that rejoice in doing evil and that like think about it and like enjoy the thought of it. It's not even like, yes, it's something I don't do because socially it would be unacceptable. It wouldn't provide good consequences for my life, but there's a part of me that desires to do those things. There's a part of me that delights in the perverseness of evil, and there's a part of me who has crooked paths, and there's a part of me that is devious in my ways. Who I'm trying to get what I want. I'm selfish, and it's actually a big part of me functioning in a socially acceptable way. Probably, like a lot of what I do, it's either based in fear or it's based in love, and I'm always trying to move towards that love. But let's be real, a big part of me is based in fear, and when you're based in fear, that's where you cling to evil. Really, I think at least. And so that's where I want to show up in my life. I want to get good at seeing evil and being delivered from it because of the truth of the Bible, both in myself and in my relationship with others. And how can you guys apply this to your life? Again, I think this is going to be the application for most of Proverbs. It's seek wisdom. And you seek wisdom, for the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. And this is just me. I think there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible. I was hearing... who's that old guy that like his last name is Peterson, Jordan Peterson. I'm sorry I just called him old. He's so much more than old. He's like very smart, very intellectual, like he's a G. But he was talking about how the Bible is like the precondition for determining truth. I think he said that on the Joe Rogan podcast recently. And that really blew my mind because God is the precondition for existence. So the fact that his word is the precondition for determining truth, and somebody as smart as Jordan Peterson came to that conclusion, just really made me think. And it's because that so many of our texts, so much of our literature, so much of everything in society has its origins in the Bible. Like because of that, it's a precondition that we have to look through the lens of the Bible to even determine truth in our society, which is a really interesting thought. You guys should go check out that podcast, or at least the clip where he talks. I think it's like a 5-minute clip about that on the Joe Rogan podcast. But seek wisdom, and you seek wisdom by asking the Lord for it, and you can ask the Lord for it, seeking it like silver, by reading his word, because from his mouth came knowledge and understanding, and from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Because that comes from his mouth, I think words come from the mouth. I think God's word is in the Bible. I'm drawing some connections here, but I don't think they're inaccurate. So read the Bible, seek his wisdom. I think his wisdom can also come from other people. So ask other people questions. Like seriously, people you respect, people you look up to, people whose lives you want to imitate. Go to them and ask them questions. But seek wisdom. That's how you can apply this to your life, and you will be delivered from yourself, the evil parts of yourself, because your heart will start to love understanding. It will start to love knowledge, and naturally your discretion and understanding will take you away from the paths of evil. So let me know what you guys think. That's all we got for you on the show today. We will see you on the next one. And on that note, we're out.